The work that I've been doing, I was looking at Treaty 4 as a model, Treaty 4 territory, and there's documents because that's where I come from. And the process of looking at that, it's also looking at the maps and how borders change and just how fragile these entities can be sometimes. Because of the history, because of the injustice, I felt I had to move in this other direction of becoming more, I guess, nationalistic in terms of thinking about, my own reserve and nation. But yet, it's almost like a forced position, being backed into a corner or something like that, where all of a sudden you have to strengthen all these, beliefs and these documents and ideas of what these borders are, and it's been an interesting process of arriving at that point, but at the same time knowing full well that what you do on one side of a border affects people on the other side. So in creating this piece, when again getting back to when I was approached, I was also thinking about the civil rights movement because of individuals I was interested in researching. One in particular was Jim Brady, but also at that time, just looking at the events of the 60s and the early 70s with the American Indian movement and Leonard Peltier, just looking at that history because it was influential in my own evolutionist artist, because it was because of this events that wounded me that I was curious as to about the history that I didn't know. So I'm thinking about that period of history, thinking about the political prisoners, what those people were, I guess, sacrificing, their freedom. It made me think about the cell and the level of communication and how a person is able to continue there's connections with the outside and still manage to identify and strengthen the identity within such a small space. But also made me think of even reserves within because a lot of them are also very small, but yet within the small. It's almost deceptive because it's like things can still happen within there. Ideas still can evolve. And information can still get out. And I think that's what I found interesting with Leonard Peltier, is just how he's managed to survive 33, going on 34 years behind bars. Other individuals like Nelson Mandela and others who have maintained strength, I guess, within those small borders or rooms, cells, prisons. With the post office was sort of grew out of this idea, or this piece that I've been working on, which has a lot to do with community, place where someone comes from, ideal place, if there is such a, it's a dream, I guess. Anyways, these pieces, I thought a post office would be, an essential, element to a community, how information is distributed, and just I guess a database of people that are from a community, whether or not it's an actual location or if it's a list of people that you communicate with, which is extends beyond boundaries, beyond borders, and also just as interested in an interest in the nation state and what that entails, and how the process of colonization has happened with First Nations people, and how these reserves are like small nations within a much larger nation. So I was thinking about that and trying to come up with material that supports that idea, such as documentation, the treaties, the history, artifacts, even developing new documents, documents of identification. The information that supports the idea of a nation or an entity, a body of people, and of course, again, the extent of that, the boundaries of that. I think that's what the peace in the cell is all about. It's this this bat, this exhaust pipe. This. At first, I was thinking of it as this weapon of mass destruction. That's what I was calling it, this WMD, and at the same time, of course, thinking about the seal hunt and the brutality behind it. But at the same time, you have this all these CO2 emissions that are also, doing more damage to the environment than what these sealers are doing. It's been interesting thinking about the piece and just seeing how it's evolving, and the counter with citizen renunciation forms. I thought was interesting in terms of people having a choice, I guess, of being part of something or putting it aside and becoming part of something else, or evolving into something else. I would think that would be a sort of a step in that direction. Also, when I was thinking about that piece and putting it within this historical sort of context of the 60s, I was thinking about that whole, sort of redneck saying, love it or leave it, when they were making references to the draft dodgers and, people leaving the U.S. Because, of not wanting to participate in certain activities.